do I think are the best hand traps in Yu-Gi-Oh? What do I think is the creme de la crop, the squizamente? I apologize to all my Italian Yu-Gi-Oh players. I just have one question. How's Squamata doing? It's going to be really fun to give you my opinion on these hand traps, especially after testing so much into this format. It's actually a lot different than playing in the last format, and if you've been playing Yu-Gi-Oh, I want you to let me know about your Yu-Gi-Oh experience with hand traps and what has been the most clutch hand trap for you. Also, you know, it helps the algorithm too, so even if you got something bad to say about my tier list, go ahead and say it. Jumping into this tier list, we have 5 different categories here, which are pretty self-explanatory. We have a cut above the rest, really good, situational, and then everybody's favorite. Oh no, what are you doing, baby? If you're playing these hand traps, then I mean, you tried. Hey, big dog, don't let what happened at the beginning of your day ruin the rest of your day. You still got time to take those hand traps out. But let's go ahead and start off this tier list with Artifact Lancia. Now, Artifact Lancia does prevent banishing from happening, which would be really good. But the problem is Artifact Lancia can only activate on your opponent's turn. Bro, guys, imagine if you could use it on both players' turns. Dimensional Fissure, Dimensional Shifter, Cash Tier monsters. I haven't had any luck with this card whatsoever. It's just not been good. Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring hasn't really been too much better. What I've figured out about Ash Blossom is that against some of the better decks, it's not really good. Against some of those medium decks, you're not necessarily hitting the cards that you want. It's only really good against some of those lower end decks, some of those rogue decks. This card, I mean, it completely wrecks them. On the bright side with Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, I think right now is the perfect time to get it set because it isn't so much of a great card right now. In the future, when it is a good card, that's when people will be looking for it and its price probably will go up. I decided to split the Bystial monsters into 3 different sections because I do think differently on all 3 of them. The Bystial monsters have been extremely effective against graveyard reliant decks if they're light and dark. I think Bystial Druid Swarm is the best. It is hands down the best Bystial. Bro, Bystial Druid Swarm can not only banish a light and dark monster, it also sends special summon monsters to the graveyard. I count 2 disrupts for 1 card. I'm a sucker for those. Even if your opponent does use a card like Dark the Dark Charmer to special summon Bystial Druid Swarm, they have to be aware of that effect. But on the flip side, Bystial Magnum Hut can either be your best friend or your worst enemy. Of course, you use Bystial Magnum Hut to get into your Druid Swarm, but also so can your opponent if they special summon it with Dark the Dark Charmer. I'm so conflicted because this card gets you into other dragons, but like, so does it for your opponent. Bystial Serenera, let's be real guys, outside of certain decks, the only reason why we'd ever play this card is because it's a different name. I actually hold high regard to Chaos Hunter. I think that it's a really good card in the right situation. Take for example, if your opponent uses Dimension Shifter against you and you play a card named Mannequin Cat, you can use Mannequin Cat to summon Dimension Shifter to their side of the field and then use the Mannequin Cat to summon Chaos Hunter from your deck and proceed to combo as usual. The card is also stronger than Cash Tier monsters too and turns their effects off. Contact C felt like the best hand trap against decks like Tearlament until it wasn't. My guys, I was playing against Tearlament. I gave him this Contact C. He fretted for a minute. I saw it in his eyes. He had fear. And then he summoned the Bystial. This card is not a permanent solution, and a lot of times it's only a temporary fix. It does have a high potential to be really impactful when your opponent's using multiple effects to be able to summon monsters, but sometimes it's, it ain't it, chief. D.D. Crow is literally a Bystial monster with its own benefits and drawbacks. A benefit would be as well, you can banish any card in your opponent's graveyard. The drawback? It's not a 2500 attack Chunkus boy. I mean, look at these little flappy arms and look at these big buff arms and look at these. What are those? My guy catches fades like this. I don't trust him. Now, here is a bold take that you guys can drag me through the mud for, and I really want to hear what's your thoughts after I rank Dimension Shifter. I think it's good. That's it. So I've witnessed several problems when I was testing Dimension Shifter. The first thing, that it's only genuinely good if you're going second. Normally, you don't want to go second. You want to be able to stop your opponent's turn and play your turn uninterrupted, as opposed to activating it on your turn and then maybe still kind of allowing them to play. But that brings me to problem number 2. They figured out how to play. Some of the most graveyard reliant decks have figured out how to play around Shifter. Doesn't hurt that you put a dark monster in the graveyard too, so you know, they can just Bystial it away, and then summon more monsters. I have never felt more bad than drawing Dimension Shifter, using it, and still getting destroyed. It felt bad. The last two problems that I'm going to mention is that Dimension Shifter obviously is only good in the opening stages of the game when you have no cards in the graveyard, and then there are also way more decks that aren't graveyard focused, which is crazy because even if you look at this tier list, you would think that that would be the opposite, but there's a difference between this card and this card. Druid Swarm and Magnum Hood provide other utility as being huge monsters, and Druid Swarm being able to get rid of an opponent's card. D.D Crow is just extremely versatile. Not only can it hit light and dark monsters, it can also hit important spells and traps that a lot of decks need. By all means, I don't think Dimension Shifter is a terrible Yu-Gi-Oh card. It's good, as you can see, but I don't think it's as good as some people may think. But I don't know, maybe it's just because I kept getting destroyed. You let me know about your experience with Dimension Shifter and how powerful the card is. Droll and Lockbird feels immensely situational. It feels like its power is really rooted into drawing it and opening it in your turn one. And just like Dimension Shifter, I'm not really a fan of that. Effect Veiler, my guys, this card is pretty dang good. The only problems that I have with Effect Veiler has to be used in the main phase and also has to go to the graveyard. That comes up sometimes. Fantastical Dragon Phantasme. I mean, if you want to donate your life points to the Shadow Round, be my guest. Cypher Gear Gamma is also a really good card. Who would have knew being able to negate an effect and get rid of the monster would be dope? I mean, it sucks that you can only activate it when you don't have monsters, but a lot of times you can catch your opponent using a monster effect when you ain't got no monsters. Tier Element's Haviness? I mean, having this nuts in your mouth. I mean, I would tell you guys the joke about the Bystial, but I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty much the same thing. Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit is situational. There are times where you want to destroy the card as opposed to letting the effect resolve. And I actually like Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit the best against continuous spell and trap cards as well as fill cards. Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood. This is not a drill. This is not a joke. A cut above the rest. Hey, you can say I'm biased all you want, but when you hear Yu-Gi-Oh players, you're in dime. And I Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwooded you. Best part about this card is when your opponent activates a ton of effects that allow them to special summon, and as the last chain you go Dogwood, you be like, I'm gaining life points today. Ghost Bell is also a pretty good card. It has really niche interactions like being able to stop the Bystials for the turn and also being able to address graveyard and banish decks. It's carved its own unique role, and I'm actually pretty proud for her. I'm really proud for her. I mean, she already did own a mansion though. Ghost Mortar and Moonlit Chill reminds me of the Dogwood. It is a card that is heavily underrated, guys. And just like Dogwood, I Ghost Mortar your monster, you get rid of it, and they say, Yu-Gi-Oh players, you're in dime. It's also the only effect negation hand trap that can be activated from your hand while you control cards outside of the main phase and during either player's turn. Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries, yeah, it's pretty good. It's all right. My perspective had changed with Ghost Reapers because I was expecting this card to be a blowout. We all know that it is not that. Your opponent can still play Yu-Gi-Oh, but being able to take away a key aspect from your opponent is pretty good if your deck can go toe-to-toe. Herald of Orange Light is going to be our lowest rated effect negator. Yo, this card's at 1. You can't even adequately build a deck including fairy monsters with this card. The only way for this card to even be decently viable is that if you're already playing a fairy deck. And that's what makes this card just not as good. Infinite Impermanence is the best effect negation hand trap in the game. My guys, there are so many times where that negate the card in the same column has come up. Bro, sometimes I've even used it strictly for that effect. With Heavenly Zephyr Mirador, I'll admit it wasn't as good as I thought it would be. I mean, Bystial Magnum I can still search it, but it's not that. Nibiru the Primal Being is just like Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. It's really strong against some of the lower index, and the higher you go, the worse the card gets. Ciphering Gear Delta, no. Saravis, I mean, I got my hopes, but for right now, no. Token Collector, man, what are we doing here? Skullmeister is also another hand trap that is really, really good because it does have an influence that is different from all of these other hand traps. It can stop spell traps and monster effects that are activating in the graveyard. And this is what I got for you, big dog. This is what I think of the current standing of hand traps inside of this format. Of course, let me know down below in the comment section, was I wrong? Was I right? What do you think about certain hand traps and what exactly did I miss? For more amazing CaliEffect content, check out these videos. I'll catch you on the next one.